I woke up to the sound of a chainsaw outside my bedroom window, not the lazy Saturday kind, the angry, early morning kind that cuts through sleep and memory. I stumbled onto my porch in a sweatshirt and slippers and saw men in orange vests, sawdust in the air, and Vivian Crane, the HOA president, standing with her arms folded like she was on a stage. That's where it started, the morning my fence. My name is Eli Hayes. After my wife Lila died, I built a small memorial in the backyard. A bench, lavender, a low wooden fence with a gate and solar lanterns. It wasn't for show, it was where I talked to the person I lost. Maple Hollow likes tidy things, and Vivian liked being tidy more than she liked being kind. She told the contractor to start, clipboard in hand. Violation, she said, the word polite as a guillotine. I told her we had old review letters, that the fence had been there quietly for years. She smiled a smile that counted fingers and not feelings. They cut a panel while I stood there and felt the edge of something inside me break. A week later, at the county records office, I saw why we weren't supposed to cut anything yet. The HOA minutes had missing pages. Amendments were filed late or with the wrong notary. Paperwork that should have been a brick wall against a chainsaw turned out to be tissue. I started taking photos, saving timestamps, collecting neighbor accounts, June Morales' Ring camera, Dr. Alan Pierce's photos from 2 doors down. Small things, sure, but enough to make a pattern. Vivian answered with fines that arrived like thunderclaps: unauthorized structure, landscaping violation, each letter meaner than the last. She filled town meetings with rhetoric about property values and safety, and when I challenged her, she made the process the punishment. Phony inspections, a man measuring the fence who misread his tape like he'd been coached. I recorded the measurement on my phone. That tape curled into evidence. We began to organize in a clumsy, stubborn way. My toolbox and a borrowed laptop, neighbors with casseroles and outrage. June held my arm in a grocery store and said, "We're not losing this bench." Dr. Pierce dug through archived minutes. Jake and Maria Ramirez printed signs and handed them out like lifelines. Keep Maple Hollow human. We weren't activists, just people who'd been shoved and decided to push back. Vivian escalated. She filed an emergency order claiming imminent hazard, and the sheriff came with a paper that looked official. For a humiliating morning, our memorial was taped off. She wanted a spectacle, and for a second, she almost had it until someone in the crowd played old recordings of board meetings where Vivian's signature didn't match, and where votes were announced without quorum. The crowd stopped being a backdrop and started being witnesses. The county auditor found the legal weak points: improper notarizations, missing quorum, suspicious invoices paid to a contractor tied to a shell company. Vivian's fines were smoke. The emergency order was a paper tiger. The contractor's grin faded. The power that had looked immovable was built on sloppy paperwork and private favors. The showdown came on a wet morning in late spring. Reporters lined the curb, cameras blinking like beetle eyes. Vivian stood in heels too clean for mud. Instead of a demolition crew, county officers handed her subpoenas and read findings about conflicts of interest. She held her clipboard like armor, and when the words landed, she looked smaller, not triumphant, not vindicated, just ordinary. It didn't turn into a Hollywood ending. There were phone calls at night, threats whispered by people who felt betrayed, neighbors who left because the cost of staying was too high. The legal machine moved slow: settlements, resignations, restitution to a community fund, the contractor losing licenses. Some people's porches got painted brighter, some families moved away. Our street hummed with repair and argument in equal measure. For me, the fence stayed. The bench got a new coat of paint. The lavender came back like a stubborn memory. I learned that grief is a strange kind of muscle. It will let you be patient, and it will make you furious, sometimes in the same afternoon. I also learned how fragile authority can be when someone decides not to look away. I started reading the HOA binder like a wiring diagram, carefully, slowly, looking for the short. I found invoices that looped back to one contractor, a roster that went blank the year Vivian took over, and meeting minutes with pages ripped out. Those little errors stacked into something bigger, a picture of decisions made to favor certain people and a system that rewarded friends. The human moments mattered too. A woman who'd voted for Vivian after her divorce came to me and said she hadn't known what to expect. Another neighbor who'd always loved order said, quietly, that she'd never wanted cruelty. Dr. Pierce, with his patient spreadsheets, taught me where quorum rules lived and why one missing signature makes a whole vote hollow. June dropped off a pie and said, "This is not about offense. It's about pride." I sat in a small lawyer's office with Lena Alvarez, and she showed me how to turn our cluttered evidence into a clear story: dates, recorded measurements, photocopies of missing pages. The legal part was tedious and precise, and it made me appreciate the kind of justice that shows up with stapled affidavits and quiet witnesses. The inspector's report felt like a verdict even before a judge weighed in. When he read out the list: improper notarizations, conflicts of interest, invoices that didn't match work orders, you could see the math land in people's faces. Vivian tried to answer with talk of standards and precedent, but the words bounced off the findings like pebbles off glass. The day the subpoenas were served, someone I still don't know who taped a small note to my gate. For Lila. It was the kind of anonymous kindness that means more than 1,000 speeches. We used restitution to form a real maintenance committee with rotating oversight and posted all minutes in a public folder. People started coming to meetings prepared with questions instead of casserole dishes. We learned to read the paperwork like a neighborhood that had taken back small parts of itself. It didn't stop the hard things. Some neighbors left, tired of the fight. Other friendships frayed. Vivian left with a statement about duty and standards. Some people defended her. But the bench stayed, and the lavender came back, and I learned that grief and stubbornness can arrange themselves into protection. There are images I go back to. The slant of late light across the bench, a neighbor's hand pressing a petition into my palm, a sheriff's deputy folding his arms and looking at his shoes as the subpoenas were handed out. Lila's laugh echoes in the garden when it rains. I still mark the anniversary of her death by planting something new in the lavender bed. It's a small ritual, stubborn and human. So what would you have done? Was I right to push back, or did I turn a private grief into a public spectacle? Tell me in the comments. Share your own small fight, your own fence story. If this resonated with you, share it with a neighbor, and next time you see a meeting notice, read the signature lines. Tiny checks matter. They keep a neighborhood from becoming someone's kingdom.